702.
Family Matters.
I want us to have a conversation this morning on our Family Matters feature about religion conversion and how it impacts the family dynamics. Many of us were raised in families where religion or following a particular faith was so important, right? We were obliged to follow, we were obliged to respect it. Whether it's Christianity, whether it's Islam, it's Judaism, Shembe, Hindu, African spirituality, whatever belief or religion you have followed as a child. But at some point, some people convert. As people grow older, they evolve, and sometimes they are introduced to other belief systems that are different from what they were introduced to by their families. For some people, it's when they started questioning certain practices and aspects about their faith and beliefs as they are growing older, which then leads them to walk away from those beliefs. And then when that happens, it causes tension and conflict in the family. The parents are feeling betrayed. You feel like they don't respect your decision or journey. And that can lead to families breaking apart. Some people have even kept this a secret. The fact that they have converted, they've kept it a secret because they don't want to create tension. So let's have a conversation about how some decisions to change our beliefs in certain things or to convert to particular faiths has impacted the family dynamic. I'd like to hear what your experiences have been. Did you suddenly stop attending ceremonies, ancestry ceremonies where the family is talking to the ancestors? Or is it the other way around, where you started practicing that and you come from a family that was quite staunch in their Christian beliefs? Have you converted? What's been your experience? 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 0727021702. And if that's the case with you, if this change has happened in your life, how did it affect your relationship with your family? Did they accept it? Maybe for you, it was a move from Christianity to African spirituality, or vice versa, or a move from one religion to another. You grew up Christian or Islam and you converted to another religion or belief. Now, maybe you've become agnostic or atheist. How did your family take that? I'll take your calls and your WhatsApps as you share your inputs with us. Kefilwe Mojapelo is a psychosocial well-being practitioner and social worker at KM Psych Services. Kefilwe will be guiding us through this conversation. Thank you for making time, Kefilwe. Welcome back to the show. Good morning.
Morning, Clement. Morning, and to the listeners as well. Thank you so much for considering me. Thank you so much. Also, the topic is so much interesting, Bona. It hits home right there.
It does, right? Yeah. Straight Bedikop. Let's talk about that impact on the family dynamic, because it happens a lot where maybe Clement, starts practicing African spirituality and the family is like, what? We raised you with Christian values. Or it's the other way around. You grew up being raised to practice African spirituality and their specific belief, principles and practices that you observed growing up. And then suddenly you are much older, you convert to Islam, or you are so Christian that you don't even practice those anymore. How does a decision like that impact on the family dynamic? In your experience, how have families navigated that?
Thank you, Clement, for the time once again. I think, of course, it's undeniable as Africans, we are big on culture and religion rather. And not excluding other people, but I'm just highlighting Africans now for the purpose of this important point that I just want to make. So being it big on culture and religion, when it comes to either religion or culture or somebody ayamadozing, and it changes the whole belief, because it's about the belief, because culture denotes how we live and it guides our conduct. And it's linked to our values, our personal values. Now, when that changes, the family perceives that as a point of departure. It's a conflicting, that's where we conflict as families. So that it's a cause for concern, because especially when it comes to religion and Leona culture, because we all term it under spirituality. So spirituality, and then we go to culture, and then religion is very much linked. So if we are going to depart based on a church, where is God? If you are going to depart based on culture, where is God as well? Because we are talking about spiritual matters and other ancestors, if people believe in that. So be that as it may, should that, a big question of today, should that be a point of departure now? Is it worth it? Break the family's ties now. And when we depart, what are we really departing on? On our values, is it a declaration of war? If I'm saying, today I'm going to this church, or maybe I'm in a particular church, there's factionalism, there's what, and I choose the other side. What does it change about me as my personality? If you are my mother or you are my sister, what does that change? Our experiences, me being your child, all this time, just because of religion or culture or church or belief. Is it worth really shaking our relationship now? That's a big question.
Isn't the problem, Kefilwe, that we grew up with these principles and practices being shoved down our throats with no opportunity to even question? And I'm not suggesting that when a child is born, you must ask them, okay, what religion do you want to believe in and practice? In fact, there are families who actually do that, who want their children themselves to decide. But when the child is still young, the child is born in your household, obviously they're going to follow what you follow. And when they get into that age of consent where they're old enough, they can make their own decisions. But is the problem that we don't come from that culture that allowed for us to question? Because even when you question something about whether it's your belief in that African spirituality or you believe in Islam, in the Quran, in the Bible, you are seen as, this child is a rebel, or utsenikima demoni, he's possessed. Is that not part of the problem? That is why sometimes the parents, especially the older generation, will take it to heart, and it pains them when you, quote unquote, depart from what has for long been practiced by you as a family, as a unit.
And it's sad, Clement, because when we grow up, we question. And our parents are challenged with that because they don't want to be questioned. Part of it is also because they didn't understand certain things. It's part of culture. It's things that we practice. And then generation to generation, it gets lost somewhere. Then when it gets lost, now as Kefilwe today, as a mother, as a person, as an adult, when I ask my mom, I'm a child, but I'm an adult child. But to them, for some reason, I will remain forever a child. Now I'm in my home. I'm a custodian of those cultural practices that I must carry on with my children. And yet when I come to you and ask, you don't understand, and you take that as an offense, yet I need to understand because I'm a custodian of this thing. I must take it forth. So unfortunately, that's where also we have to think deeper as Africans as well to say, where is understanding? Because the bigger point is understanding. And anyway, to some degree, maybe my mom, when she's not explaining certain things, is because she's also, maybe it's a self-defense mechanism. She's not understanding herself. She followed as well a culture of not asking. Now I must also not ask because she did not ask. But that's where now I want us, Richard Chamagia, to say, can we now conscientize ourselves to say, let's as Africans, as people as well, generally, and understanding is key, because understanding, it resolves it's linked very much to communication, because if you cannot understand each other, we'll never resonate. So understanding, communication breeds understanding. So let's open ourselves. I'm challenging the generation before me now to say, let's open ourselves to explaining things, especially to us, so that we understand, we are able to resonate and carry on whatever.
Yeah.
Or where we conflict, I'm saying, my mom, more, I'm cutting this. Then there's understanding. I think that's key. Understanding.
Yeah. I mean, some of us are still practicing certain things, whether it's from religious beliefs or cultural beliefs, and we don't even understand them. Like, exactly. There are certain things it's a ritual for you. But if I asked you, why do you do that? Or what value does it add? There is no understanding, because we come from this culture where we didn't question, and there was no conducive environment for us to question. Let's hear from our listeners on 011-883-0702. That's where you can call me. Or if you prefer to send a WhatsApp voice note, send it on 072-702-1702. What's your experience? Have you ever converted? Have you ever had to deal with a child who comes back and say, Mom, Dad, I'm not following this religion anymore. I'm agnostic because of this. Or who comes and says, I'm no longer Christian or I no longer follow Islam. How have you dealt with it as a parent?
Good morning again, Clement. I decided to be an agnostic. And myself, again, obviously, I was raised in a Christian background. But what's funny to me is how, even though I'm 42, my parents still think I'm lost. I still don't know what I'm doing. They're afraid that my soul is lost in case I die and stuff like that. They're still trying to persuade me to get back into the fold of Christianity.
Morning, Clement. I'll remain anonymous. I am battling with exactly that. I grew up in a Christian home, but as I grew older, I started to embrace my African spirituality, and the resistance I get from family and everyone else is that, nope, that's not who you are or who we are. And I'm conflicted because of such things, and it becomes a problem because you don't know which direction to go. But I took a decision that I will do what pleases me at the end of the day, because I don't want to be pleasing any other person besides me.
Okay. Thank you for sending the WhatsApp voice notes. Keep them coming. I'll go to your calls also in a moment. So, Kefilwe, as you hear from these two voice notes, there are people who have made the decision to change their beliefs, but there's resistance coming from the families, and for some people it ends up affecting their mental health because you feel like you're losing your family, because when the family is not accepting you, sometimes it's the family itself that cuts you off. And in some instances, it's you who decides, you know what? What's the point of being in this family unit when they don't respect the decision I've taken, or at the very least, they don't even want to hear why I've made the changes I've made to what I believe in. So how do people navigate that tension? Do you walk away? Do you cut the family off or the other person? Or is there a way you can involve a third party here and find a way to resolve it and hear each other?
Yeah, it's very sad, Clement, because I've seen this. It really hits home. I've seen this malapa tubega because of this. Just because I've converted to this, to that, or a couple, they are married. The other ones today found she has a calling, and then or finds Jesus along the way, either or. And then families because of that. Unfortunately, I did that with that in my practice. Not only that, personally on the front, that also happens. So, because today, you can't even bury your brother because your brother converted to whatever that you don't agree to. And so now the question, what do we do about that? And in because also we fought apartheid. And apartheid was separation or apartness based on what? On race. Now we also practice that even within our family. It's such a close thing. And yet in our workplaces, we talk diversity and whatnot. But diversity, it pala on the forefront in our home. It hurts. It hurts because I've seen Clement firsthand the reality, and is very sad.
Yeah.
Moreover, I want us also to think of the psychology behind loyalty. Behind loyalty and even behind religion. What is it about favoring a certain brand or a team or a church that is so much key and core that it even touches the relationship, my sister or my mom? What is it? I'm asking now the listeners as well, let's expand it there to say, let's think beyond ourselves, and in spite of ourselves and our feelings of being hurt, somebody converted, think beyond yourself, empathy now. So that is key. If you cannot empathize and put yourself in Clement's shoes and understand why is Clement following a certain culture now. And I'm trying to style, I cannot just choose today to follow a certain culture or religion and some people are not willing to listen to me. There are experiences that people undergo. There are life developments. There are changes that people are going through, either at work or personally, that makes a person to convert. And yet, as a mother or a child, I cannot even listen to my sister or my child to say what makes them change. And we discard people right there to say you changed. You focus on the last thing. You don't focus on the key experiences. Why is Clement as my child changing? Why? What is happening? And because it's only communication. I think the simple, you asking what do we do now? Do we include the third party? What do we do? Of course, I cannot rule up. I'm the third party myself normally in such things. Because Clement, I'm hence getting to Ishapa home. Let's go back to my purpose as Kefilwe Mojapelo. My purpose is to nurture relationships, build functional families, and promote psychosocial well-being and restoration. Where things are broken, tips are broken, I'm there. So why am I saying this? Because the family is everything as Africans. If know you drop down, who are they calling? They are not going to call my friend. So including a third party is very important. Communication. All I check is communication, how we communicate around this, how we listen. I sit there and analyze for how is Clement listening to their mother, or what is happening. So those are the key things that we are not hearing each other normally. Okay. We are not willing to listen, and that unfortunately may break our communication.
All right, let's go to the calls. Spiwe, you're in Joburg. Hi.
Yes, good day. How are you doing?
Good, man. How are you?
Good greetings to your visitor as well. Thank you very much for the topic. It's very interesting, and also very true that it really breaks our families. And what you see is saying is that people are going through a whole lot, in this life. And on top of that, we've got this now barrier where I can't go to his function because of Abadimu, or I can't eat because of Abadimu and all of that. So those are barriers that we live with daily, families in our lives. But what I see as a common denominator is that we all agree that a human being is created from God. And as a product of God, meaning this is a gadget of God. Now, if we agree on that, then that means we should agree that the manual should be coming from God. Now, meaning that the culture of a human being should be from God, the religion of a human being should be from God, and anything about the human being, whether it's customs, whether it's lifestyle, whether it's living with each other, should be from God. So if we agree on all of those things, then we should then understand that it is us that define the interpretation of the manual, because the manual should be one. It can't be contradicted. So now, if we have that situation, then let's look into what is it that we disagree upon in the interpretation of the manual of this gadget called a human being. Because from that's where we'll find that. And what I've noticed is that it's so little things that we differ upon, but we make it such a big thing. And we agree on so many things across all accepted religions. We agree on so many things, but we don't choose to look at that and look at what makes us different. But it's unfortunate that the reason we look at that, what makes us different, is because this is more about the soul. So a human being cannot really explain the soul further than what we understand is life and death. But because we believe that this has so much for us to do with the afterlife, because most of us are believers. That's our common denominator as well. It doesn't matter whether you're under Islam, whether you're under Christianity, whether you associate as what. For the fact that you're going to say God, it doesn't matter you call him Allah or Umtali or Mudimu. We're speaking of the same thing, meaning everyone is the believer then. That's what we identify upon as one. We are believers. Yeah. So from that, then we should understand that we've got this manual. And for us is to understand why do we differ on the manual? Where do we differ on the manual? And now coming to African spirituality, white spirituality, pink, black spirituality, I don't like those terms, Kakulu Moba. Another denominator is we're speaking of a human being, which is one, with 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth, so many teeth. All of that we've got in common. Now, why must we then have the superiority either of race or anything else that doesn't have to do anything to do with humanity and being a human? So we have to understand that we're speaking of a human being with one manual, and from one God. Yeah. And from that manual, your culture is derived from that, your religion is derived from that, your livelihood is derived from that, including all your commerce, everything is derived from, and it is according to that. That's what we should have as understanding.
Spiwe, enjoy. Thank you, man. Thanks for your contribution. Let's hear from Kwadikwe in Pretoria. Good morning. Hi, Kwadikwe.
Are you good?
Yes, I'm good. Go ahead.
Good. Baba, you know, the spirituality that is coming through, it's coming from our parents, it's our culture. So sometimes when you, like your mother, maybe she didn't take the journey to work through the things, her things, then it will come to Clement. It's going to come to you. So sometimes then you minister through your mother or your father, but sometimes they don't acknowledge the gift that we're having. But it comes from that. Come on, that's a move.
Yeah, no, Kwadikwe, thank you for your contribution. Pastor Frank in Dube, good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Well, Clement, I used to go to one of the main churches, and then I got born again. So then I switched the church, and there were differences, particularly with my parents. But fact of the matter is that I didn't clash with my mother. I did not fight with her. And from the beginning, she had a problem with me having to leave the church that I had to leave, that I used to go to, and go to another church. But relationship-wise, because as a family, I never stopped respecting my father. But the only thing she knew was that there are certain practices that I do not do as a result of the faith that I've converted to.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of choice, and it's wrong for parents to force the children to believe the same way that you believe. Because when children reach the age, what we call the age of accountability, they will choose what they want to believe. You see what I mean? But now people are also critical of us. They call us the so-called born-agains. And we also, from our side, we're not supposed to have this superiority mentality. You know what I mean? Look down on other religions or cultural practices that other people do. It's a matter of choice, and it's a matter of conviction as well.
Yeah.
What I mean?
Yeah. And so what's that relationship with you and the family, Pastor Frank, after you got born again, at home, when do they have cultural practices, and when you don't take part in those, what's the reaction? Has it changed in the dynamics of your relationship?
Of course it did. I mean, there was sadness on their part, that I can't practice this, I can't do this anymore. You know what I mean? Of course, there was a negative reaction. There was a negative reaction. But I remember also, as I grew up in my faith, that one of my sisters went to my mother, because my mother was the biggest opponent, you want me to put it that way. And my sister said to my mother, you should leave this child. What if this child had chosen to become a criminal? At least he's moving from one church to the other. You see what I mean? It's not like the child is deciding today, look, I want to be a bank robber now. From today, I want to be a criminal. So my sister was happy for me, even though I had opposition for my mother, but my sister was happy for me.
Yeah. Pastor Frank in Dube, Soweto, thank you for sharing that experience with us.
702 Family Matters.
Oh, some of the messages coming through are just so heartbreaking. We talk on Twitter, says Clement, love is a powerful thing. It can make us to coexist even if we don't agree. It is really traumatic to be rejected by your immediate family. I was put in the back and forth family meetings because I chose Jesus. I'm glad it's all resolved now thanks to my aunt. Raitwana on Twitter also says, Clement, at the age of 21, I quit Christianity and I stopped going to church. We were not on speaking terms with my mom for 2 years. I keep asking myself if he himself declared that he is Jesus Nazareth, King of the Jews. Why do we, as non-Jews, keep on forcing ourselves on him? That's Raitwana there. On Twitter. Let's go to some WhatsApp voice notes that have also come through.
Hi, Judah here from Midrand. I think it's very important that when you are in a religion, you must be free to ask questions. Ask questions which you are not comfortable about, so that you know what you believe in. I was born in a Christian family, and I went through a stage where I became so rebellious about the Christian faith, and that was the best thing for me, because I went to the Bible, I researched, and I asked my parents questions. And until I understood what Christianity is, I am a much more stronger Christian now compared to when I was just born into the religion.
Oh, I love that. Being born into the religion, but also doing your own work to understand, which is the point I was making earlier, that so many people are believing in certain things. We are still practicing certain things, and yet we have no understanding of where those things originate from and what the purpose and the value of it is. And the minute you start questioning that, you are rebellious.
Good morning, Clement. Nice show as always. This is Tolani Sibia from Mamelodi in Pretoria. Of course, due to the past experience, we're able to switch to another religion. For example, myself, I switched from Christianity because of the experience I have in the past to African spirituality. And by the way, African spirituality is not a religion. It's another topic for another day. So yeah, just take note of that. But I appreciate it. Nice show. Bye.
Thank you. And yeah, of course, it's not a religion. We're just broadening our conversation. We're not limiting it to just particular religions. But if you believe there are certain cultural, traditional, African spirituality things that you believe in, you can also share those with us. Because it is a reality for other people. Kefilwe, I don't know if you have reflections on some of the experiences that have been shared by our listeners, but I mean the tweets I got that I read earlier suggested that in some families people have gone for a long time without speaking to their parents because of the tension that arose as a result of them changing their beliefs.
Yeah, so all I'm hearing, Clement, when I'm listening to all these people, I'm still it still takes me back to that point, the other psychology behind loyalty. And what is it about that loyalty to a church or that loyalty to a race that makes me cut my child when they start dating a person from a different race? What is it inside that? I want people now to self-introspect and become aware of such things and question yourself as a parent, as a person, as a mother, as a brother, as a sister. What is it about this psychology behind loyalty that makes me cut a person in the name of church, in the name of race, in the name of culture and religion? So there's something deeper there. If we can find answers there, definitely then we'll get to understand. So I want people to go deeper and ponder on that, to say, when Kaizer Chiefs has lost, and then I'm not going to sleep with my I know there was a guy who said I'm not sleeping with my wife today because Kaizer Chiefs lost. What is it in that makes a person go to such an extreme personally? Because it's the very same thing. It's the very same psychology that we are talking about. What is it that makes me cut my sister whom I grew up with? Simply because they've converted. Yeah. So definitely we must go back there and reboot it. But another thing that I'm thinking as well, what can be done? You've been asking, do we include the third party? I know my mom, when my brother wanted to convert, my brother actually is the one who called my grandmother to intervene, and she mediated between the two people, and they could resonate thereafter. So it was also teaching us communication is key around this issue. Yeah. And not just communication, but the how of that communication. And then the how, now I'm going to throw in a term called relational intelligence to say, can we apply relational intelligence, because we are talking matters of relationships and relation as family members, where we depart because we are not connecting maybe on a point of race and of church or religion or culture. So with relational intelligence, it says, it looks at many things for what makes us not be able to resonate or understand each other based on the matters of those relational aspects that we're talking about. So what is it? It includes such things such as communication, how we communicate, are we effective or not, and how we sensitize things as well. We are so sensitized and personal sometimes that we cannot think broader than ourselves. We're always self-centered, narcissistic, and keeping our ideals, personal values to ourselves and not taking ourselves outside ourselves. so that I'm able to hear Clement for what Clement is saying. Listening to respond, to hear rather, not to respond. I'm listening to Clement to understand what has changed about him converting. Is it culture? Is it an experience? Was he experiencing dreams? What was he seeing? Was his family in a what was happening in his life that made him convert to whatever? Or is it love? He found love in another race. What is it? Did I sit with a person and understand, listen to hear, not to respond? Did I take myself out and say, I'm not going to be sensitive now and apply my own biases, but listen to the person for what they are saying?
Yeah.
So let's think broader than our feelings.
Yeah.
So that's the key as well.
Joe, you're calling us from Johannesburg. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Thank you very much for taking my call. I had an experience actually with my family. Actually, we are not living together with my family because of religion. And I've been in that religion I've been Christian anyway for a long time, and I converted halfway. God was, as we spoke about conversion, and not everything was going well. And I got to the point where I got married, and my wife joined the same organization. Her parents was in the same organization, and the organization teaches us the principles of life. That says that the origin of humankind is one, the origin of all religions is one, and the one is God. We have sent all these messengers to come and guide us. That organization, and I can go to the church. I can go to any church, Muslims and Christians and Catholic and everything. I have no issue. And with my organization that I belong to, I've been there for 30 years. I'm still practicing in that organization. And along the way, as we go all the way, I start experiencing some health problems. And with my wife, we have children that are part of the organization at the same time. And starts having now issue, people telling her that your husband is having health problem because of the organization which he belongs to. And halfway, as I'm going through treatments and everything else, I'm still taking care of her without any problem, any issue. Then she decided, okay, either you leave the organization where you belong to and you follow the Christianity, or go out. Jesus or nothing. I say, why is there any verse of the Bible that says, if you don't believe in Jesus, if you don't marry Jesus, if you are not Christians, you have to destroy your family because you're not believing in what you believe. She said, no, I leave home and Jesus will provide. And with the children. And I said, thank you. And I continue supporting the children. Then she gets to the way. She lost whatever work she started. Actually, the work was what forced her to go out. She said she can provide for herself. And she lost that job. And she gets to the point where really the condition in which she was living was just not appalling. Then I say, and then she starts coming back. I say, yes, I accept, but accept me too. That I belong to the same organization, then I can continue the organization. I can go to the church. All the pastors that are preaching there knows me. I say, I have no issue with your organization, which whatever you're practicing, I can come with you. I don't drop you to the church. I can even go to the church with no problem. Because my organization doesn't prevent me from that.
Yeah, so you have accepted her in the organization. Do you mind sharing what your organization is, Joe? I think from what I picked up, you said she is Christian. What did you convert to later on?
I try to not...
okay, it's fine if you're not.
But it's a spiritual organization, which they say if you belong to Christian or the spiritual organization, which is not Christianity, already evil, things like that.
Okay, no, it's fine. Joe, if you're not comfortable, I understand if you're not able to say it. But I think we got your story. So the wife came back to Joe after everything else that's happened. And Joe says, sure, I accept you. Accept my organization too. Here's some WhatsApp voice notes.
Hey, Clement. I was converted by my son. Instead of getting angry, basically I agreed. I do think there is no heaven, there's no another world. All those things. I think I was convinced that no. It's a long time these things have been spoken about and nothing concrete has ever happened. You know, when you say concrete and belief and all those things. So I wouldn't get angry. I think, as George here in Kempton Park.
Okay, George, but did you at least hear what your son's argument is? Because I imagine the child didn't just come home and say, Daddy, there is no heaven. And you said, oh, I believe you. Let's go. And I'm not suggesting you should believe there is. I'm just saying I was waiting for you to tell me what the son said about, was he reading something? Did he have a dream? How did he convince Dad that actually this is what I believe in? And Dad was quite convinced in that. And can I just caution, there are people who are sending messages here questioning. This is not a conversation that is questioning particular religions, right? And comparing one religion to another. We're talking here about the dynamics in the family environment. When you are choosing to move from one belief system to the next, when it affects relations in the family, and how as families we can navigate these conversations much better. That's what we're talking about. We're not debating here if Jesus is the king of the Jews or not, because that's part of the debate happening there on the WhatsApp line, and that's not what we're interested in. That's not the conversation we're having.
Good morning, Clement. Clement, I choose to be anonymous. Clement, change is pain. But what I want us to perhaps throw into that discussion is the question of the distinction between culture, tradition, practice, and religion. If we could understand that, surely we would be able to get to the gist of what is meant by this painful change or process of change. Thank you.
Clement, very interesting show. So my question is actually where a husband and wife got married, they were both born again, and the husband along the way decides to convert to something else, which totally goes against what we believed in initially. So what does that mean as a married couple with children? What kind of principles and teachings do you pass on to your children or instill in your children? For me, that's where I see this thing as well, playing a role of dividing families and couples in a marriage.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Kefilwe, isn't it? You're married to someone, you've always believed in a particular system, you've followed a particular religion, and then suddenly the husband or the wives decide to change along the way. How do you then handle that as a couple, and that has kids that were also raised in a particular way? So what happens now? Do we tell our children that, oh, look, Daddy has found a new religion, therefore we follow that? Or is it a matter of just combining both in this family unit?
I think Clement, we need to acknowledge your change is inevitable, so it will be there. So when change comes, again, let's go back to communication. How are we communicating around that change? What is the conversation that we're having around that change? Some people have changed. There are people who are raising children. The father is Christian or the mother is a pastor, the father is not. How are they managing? They are managing well because they've communicated well around it. You choose your own values. You sit down as a family and say, what is our value system? You write it down. What are our values? What will govern this family? If we are not agreeing, then that's the point of departure. It's fair, but we've communicated around it. And even if we depart, we don't have to depart based on anger or anything because we still have children together. So that's why let's talk as a couple. If we cannot be conflicting enough, we are there. Psychosocial services, Kefilwe Mojapelo Psychosocial services is there. Call us, let's mediate between the two. Then you'll realize that it was not about an issue. It was about how we communicated around and about an issue. And personal things that we attached and sensitivity around the issue. So there's nothing wrong with the conversion and change. Main things, communication around it, how we view it, my opinion about it, my perception about it, which is what I'm breaking and challenging paradigms around that in my practice when I'm challenging these things.
Clive in Midrand, hi.
Clement, are you talking to me?
Yes, I am, Clive. Go ahead.
Clement, I'm excited about this topic, And I want to say this. Tradition works like that. If your parents done it, you must do it. And if you don't do it, they get upset. Let me tell you a short instance. There was a mother that made a pot roast. And she cut this leg because That's what her mother taught her. And her grandmother taught her. However, when she one day asked the great-grandmother, Mother, why are you cutting this leg here? She said, because my pot is too small. And that goes where we follow our parents and what they believe. And when you grow up, you realize, but everything you read in the Bible is not what is taught in the parish that you're going to. So I was a rebel. I stood up against that, was kicked out of the house. My parents cut me off, so to speak.
Wow.
And then as I later came back to them and taught them what the scripture teaches, you know, there was truth in what the scripture teaches, not what they got from a priest or a pastor.
Yeah. Clive in Midrand, got you there.
You know what, Clement? The problem is when a child is being born to this family, and this family, and of course there's a religion in that family, and the child is not allowed to ask questions about that religion, or that religion is not being explained to a child to say, my child, we are worshipping ancestors here because of A, B, C, D. This is what we believe. We are Christians here because this is what we believe. Explain it to a child. Let a child ask questions. But now the problem that is happening is that now you find that parents themselves don't know the religion they are in.
Yeah. That's the thing, right? Thank you so much for sharing, all of you that have shared your experiences. Thanks to Kefilwe Mojapelo as well, who's a psychosocial wellness practitioner and social worker at KM Psych Services. Go check it out if you want to consult with her.